hope you all feel the way I do, which is like, I'm up here with Michaela. Well, we're in conversation.
We are here. I just want to level set. This is my first public conversation since quarantine and COVID. And I just want to thank everyone for just being here, having on sparkly shoes, getting your hair did, because it was a lot. And it's still a lot. Like, we're still in some weird shit, And if it weren't for Nicole, I would have said no, because I said no to a lot of things. Because it's weird and it's scary, and, what is worth the risk, the effort? We're worth it. Nicole was worth it. And I really want to thank the folks that supported this.
Yes.
Because this is hard. It's hard. And so I was saying to Jess backstage, because I've been literally under a rock, I don't have any more bangers, y'all. Like, I don't have those one-liners and you're talking, your panel talk stuff. This is raw. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Y'all okay with that? Okay. And I'm so glad you're, thank you, Jess, because I need someone to talk to.
I feel like, hey, I've been so cooped up. I got things to say to people. I want to listen.
Yeah.
We were talking backstage, and I think the best place to start is in the power of Black women. You embody this yourself so clearly, but I think that it's more than just your own embodiment. It's about Black women more broadly. A thing I have learned so deeply in my work is to trust Black women and to listen to Black women. And that takes work, because there's so many forces that are pushing against those ideas. And I think of you as one of the people who's moving that idea forward in the world.
Well, thank you. And it doesn't take work from me.
Nah.
It takes work for me not to try to include other folks. And the reason why I center Black women, particularly in the US, is not just because we fly and I love us and we're dope. There's that.
That too.
But I think it's most efficient in the US, meaning, one of the things I typically say is that Black women are from the future, because we have been living and surviving everything everybody else is just now grappling with. Environmental injustice, sexual violence, poverty, patriarchy, racism, all the isms. Black women have always been living it and managed to organize brilliantly, managed to hold down the democracy since Dukakis. Black women are the most consistent Democratic voting bloc, period. And we lived through all that. So if you center, and I'm really just talking in the US framework, right?
Yep.
So if we're talking about liberation, and I'm really interested in liberation for real, like for real, for real. So if we want to get to this thing called liberation, at least somewhere, look at the folks who survived. Like, the resilience and the brilliance and the strategy that Black women have maintained in this country. Like, we still have a Cori Bush. We still have a Ayanna Pressley, and Tish, who was my neighbor in Brooklyn. Like, they're holding down the democracy for real. And y'all still oppress us. And we still manage to have box braids. So it's just a more efficient way to get to liberation. So even if I didn't love us and trust us, if I was if I'm really in the movement, if I'm really want some change, follow the ones who survived. We're still surviving. None of this shit is new. Like even when Roxanne was like, well, it's just Wednesday. That's why. That's why, because I trust them. I trust them, particularly with our democracy. I mean, they are the most democratic, patriotic. Like, why do we still believe in this shit? And we do, because we're like Ketanji. Y'all saw what Ketanji went through.
That's right.
Right? Everyone got to see it. So suppose you were an invisible black woman. Suppose you're one of the black women that work in this space, that's picking up the cups, that worked at our hotel. So if Ketanji, with all her receipts, went through all that dehumanization, knowing that there were millions of people watching. Think about the ones y'all like, do you know what I mean? Like, those are our aunties, those are our people, those are our friends.
That's right.
That lived through that and still managed to want to be here and organize and vote. And where's that sister with that dress? Off the shoulder beige number. Yes, dress. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to be oppressed and dress up for it. Okay, so now she's showing off. Like, she's like, and I got 4 kids. But it's what that is a metaphor for your belief in like some joy and some flavor. And we talked a lot about this. Mm-hmm. You refuse to get flattened. And that's what I'm grappling with right now is, so a lot of black and brown women are in places that they weren't before very quickly. It took some murder and some catastrophe. You know, George Floyd got a whole bunch of black people employed. And I'm being 100, y'all. Again, we don't have that much time, so I'm just going to. But then we get in these places, in media particularly, whether it's publishing or television, and then you got to let us in because everyone's freaked out and afraid, and everyone's looking at everybody. Everyone's afraid to get dragged. So, like, where are all the black and brown people and the black and brown women? Let's get them. And then we get in, and our language is flattened, and our flavor is, like, annoying. Because I feel like it must have, and we were talking about this backstage. We're just continuing our conversations because the green room was lit. But like how maybe some of our parents, our mothers felt when they first went into like not the domestic labor force, but like in offices and stuff, and men lost their minds and didn't know what to do with people. Like, should I touch their butt? Should I ignore them? Like, I feel like black and brown women are experiencing that inside of these cultures of work that weren't used to us being in charge, being leaders. So, you know, I get caught, like I'm a writer, and luckily, you know, I'm grown enough to like not need anything. So I can say, don't run this story. Then, if you can't deal with my language, if you want me to, the explaining that you are asked to do for your language, for your words, for your culture. And I'm like, Megan, if I have to stop this many times to explain a phrase that I know black women know, you leave the dream. You're out of the story. Like, no one made, and I had to read Faulkner. I had to read Shakespeare. I had to grapple with new language. If we were taught Zora Neale Hurston, the shit I'm saying is then you understand this tradition of using language and like, or hairstyles, like not being asked to like, can you quiet your hair? And like, do you really have to change it up every week? It's confusing. You know, our flavor is confusing, but you want us in this space, but you don't know how to deal with it. And like, get out the way, Megan. You know, and it's hard. Like, we're in this really new thing now. Like, y'all, like it's new and it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. This resonates with me because I think as a Latina woman, I encounter this language piece on an even different level, which is like you literally do not understand the language that we communicate in.
Yeah.
That language has even been stolen from us in this country. We've been forced to assimilate and not embrace and proclaim and speak that language even together. And so there is this idea of translation, and things get lost in translation.
Literally.
Literally. And there are things I can't explain. There actually is not an English counterpart for what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't exist in that culture, in that language. And I think that there is, you know, I'm constantly thinking about Black women as an inspiration for what I'm trying to do in the Latino community, because I think in some ways we are behind some of that reclamation culturally, like all together, collectively. And I'm like, okay, how do I get there? I want to get there. I want to be inspired by that, because there's things that are similar and there's things that are different. And one of the things I think is different is you're trying to unite a people who do not have a shared experience and may not even have a shared language, but that language can't totally be erased. We were talking about ancestral backstage, like what's inside of you. And I do think it's inside of me, like on some level. And I have a hard time explaining that because it does transcend explanation.
Yeah.
It's something I feel and something I see and something I can touch. I'm not sure it's something I can say always.
And you shouldn't have to. Like, that's the, I mean, first of all, wait a minute. Can we just acknowledge her fit? I'm sorry. She's serving too, right? Okay. We have to, you know, acknowledge when it shows up. So there's that. But yeah, like it's exhausting to have to explain again, you know, who are you serving and who are you talking to? And so if you're talking to your people, like you shouldn't have to explain, right? And I do think, again, in the U.S., Black folks have a very particular history, but y'all were here. Like this, people are just coming home.
100%.
And
or they literally stayed in place.
Yes.
And the border move around them.
and we do have a lot in common. It was when you said, someone was asking you about what you do, and you say you work with refugees. And I'm like, I am the descendant of refugees. My grandparents were refugees from South Carolina. The Klan came to their house with guns, on horses, like in the movies, and ran them off their farm. And they ran to Philadelphia. That is a refugee. When you're in terrorist territory and you flee for your life and the life of your family, you are a refugee. So my grandparents were refugees from Sumter, South Carolina. There was nothing great about that migration. My grandfather did not want to leave his farm. He had to. There were terrorists that threatened their life. And my proximity to whiteness, the reason why I look like this and my hair is this color, well, I paid for some of it recently, but there's that. This is a strategy to survive in America. My folks married light-skinned people so they could live. Because if you live in the South and you've seen a lynching, which most of us, our ancestors have, those are Black people hanging. Those are the people that get snatched up in the night, the ones that are Black from a distance. So someone like me, you might want to think about, like, maybe not, or maybe she's related to Massa what. So not to say that you don't have violence and terror, but you might not get killed. You might not get snatched up in the night and hung and burned with thousands of people watching and selling chicken sandwiches and bringing their children. That's what happens to darker-skinned Black folks. So like any other animal, of the jungle, they protect their children. So if you say, okay, light-skinned people can live longer, can maybe go to school, can maybe get a sandwich, can maybe, so let's do that, y'all. So that's, we were talking about this, like, as a like our proximity to whiteness gets us in places. 100%. That's why I was at CNN. Ketanji couldn't have done it. So when I show up, I'm going to bring it. The smoke is coming. Like, don't get distracted. But we were talking about this too, but then you have to negotiate.
That's right.
How much you can say. Because if you get asked to leave the table because you bring too much heat, then nobody gets there.
Nobody's there.
Then nobody's there.
Nobody
so we're doing this constant, like, manipulation and negotiation, and our white counterparts just show up to work. Like, my daughter shared a story recently. She works at a big fashion house. It's not Chanel, so I'm not going to say it. We love Chanel. Thank you, Chanel Foundation. But she was very shook, you know, a couple of weeks ago when 20 HBCUs got these death threats, right? Yep. And she's like, Mom, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to go there today because I'm shook. And I don't want to tell them why I'm shook, because that's the whole thing, because that's that labor where I got to explain to y'all why I'm shook. And they're just having a day. And there's so many days where Black and brown women are negotiating so much stuff, and we still are at the board meeting. We're still explaining to Megan why this word is our word. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I think we don't say it enough, and our allies don't hear it enough. Like this, like, we're doing a lot of labor. Like, our labor built this country, and now our labor is helping your diversity program. It's exhausting. And you don't grow if we keep doing the labor. How are you, like, my daughter was like, I wish they would just appropriate our strength. Like, not the lips, not the butt. Can they appropriate some resilience? And she's not as radical as I am. She's just, some days she's tired. Yep. And her friends and her colleagues don't know and can't hold it. Yeah. So you have to get, like, women of whiteness, you have to get stronger faster. Like, that's just it. Like, you're here, we're here together, but, like, because we need everybody who can do it. We need you to go talk to your friends and your family members, because this whole, like, book, for people who make books, this is a freaky time. And they're targeting, and it's white women that are leading that charge around these school board meetings. Like, let's be clear. These are, like, you got to get in it with your friends, with your cousins, with Megan and them. Like, because that's, like, we're still negotiating that. I'm still negotiating the last election. Where over 50% of white women voted for Trump. Like, that's my oppression. So I have to negotiate that, like, in a room. Like, okay, all right, who's here to help? Who's here to, like, just hang out until it's time to be safe again? Like, it's never going to be safe for my daughter, ever. She doesn't ever get to just go to, go wherever people go in summer and feel safe. So if we're going to do this, and if Black and brown women hooked up, we could checkmate white supremacy. Like, but we have to work through our trauma in the way that feels. We have to work through our trauma, and we have to heal, and that's why I really hope our sisters on the other side work faster, so some of us can rest. Black and brown women need to rest and heal, and y'all need to go out there and work and, like, do it like Ketanji. You know what I mean? Like, take it, do it. You're not gonna get lynched. We did that for you. You know what I mean? Like,
what's the worst gonna happen? And I think
that's an interesting question.
Even more, what will it unlock? What is possible if you do? I think the downside is low. Truly. Yeah. I think it's probably some internal personal embarrassment. But I think the long term, it's like the most exciting thing I could possibly think of. Freedom.
Freedom. I mean, that's really what we're in the business of. Like, I'm in the liberation business. And it's new to me. We're making mistakes. Like I said, I've been under a rock. Literally, I was in Sedona, Arizona, under a rock. So I might be acting out. But what is the alternative? Like, this thing is fragile.
That's right.
This life thing, I mean, so much of us had lost, and we couldn't go through our rituals. We couldn't do the things that we do. We couldn't, so our ancestors got even more important because we had to connect with them spiritually.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but it's one of the odd gifts of COVID for me. Like, my spiritual practice got deeper. My appreciation for my ancestors got deeper.
Yes.
My writing practice. But then it got like, what am I going to give my time to? Who am I going to give my time to? Rest. Rest is so important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the right kind of allyship. I really don't have time to just be in the room to make people feel good. Like, I just, no, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, we did that.
Yes.
And sometimes you do it for the greater good, to get this money, to help this thing,
Yeah.
And there are people younger than I am that can do that. Like, I'm a grown-ass. I'm watching my clock and my roots. So.
Well, it's like COVID slowed down, but also sped up the urgency that I feel about what I'm trying to create and change and make in the world.
Yeah.
Well,
that's our time.
That's our time. I feel like we could have done this forever.
I know.
Forever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.